Without science, man is a bird without wings, a fish without water, a soul without a purpose. Science, such a powerful entity, has granted mankind many benefits, time and time again. But nothing is more dangerous than when science is based on feeling rather than fact. Such an instance of this has occurred on the subject of vaccines, which have since gained a tainted reputation and has caused vaccine to become a dirty word. Over the past decades, there has been an increase in anti-vaccine sentiment due to health scares, logical fallacies, and negative media portrayal. In the early 1900s, vaccines first became common in everyday healthcare measures. The first vaccines, naturally, were strictly regulated for safety and efficacy. Soon enough, as this graph shows, the rate of deaths due to infectious diseases greatly decreased. Diseases once rampant, like polio, tetanus, whooping cough, and influenza, became so rare that when they do occasionally occur, doctors now have a hard time diagnosing them. To see the difference between now and back when these diseases were so common, just pick up any book from the 1800s, Jane Eyre for example, and you'll find some account of someone dying from a horrible infectious disease that is no longer common today. So Americans have become complacent with this disease-free country that we now live in, which has set the stage for logical fallacies and negative vaccine sentiment to creep its way into popular culture. So who's this man? This is Andrew Wakefield, and some would consider him to be a murderer because in 1999 he released a study that supposedly linked vaccines to autism. In response, scientists around the world began conducting their own studies to see if what Wakefield was saying was true. And thus far, there's been no studies that have shown any link between vaccines and autism. And promptly, Wakefield was stripped of all credibility and his medical degree. But nevertheless, because of how Wakefield's findings were portrayed by the media initially, many jumped on the anti-vaccine bandwagon and have increasingly have been increasingly choosing to defer vaccinating their children, which doesn't only increase the risk for their children, but also puts those at risk who can't help themselves, those who are immunocompromised, such as AIDS patients, babies, expecting mothers, and the elderly. Okay. So, with the rise of social media, like platforms like Twitter and Facebook, people can say whatever they want without being fact-checked anymore. And so it's been increasingly easy to find people who believe the same things that you do. And a study at Penn State was done to monitor sentiments towards vaccines during the H1N1 epidemic of 2009. And not surprisingly, there was a consistent amount of anti-vaccine sentiment throughout the vaccination process, starting with the creation of the vaccine and then the administration of the vaccine. But what was surprising was the finding that, as I quote, if network clusters of similar sentiments towards vaccination lead to network clusters in the distribution of vaccination, the probability of large outbreaks is greatly increased. And this is exemplified by an email that was recently forwarded to me by my mother. And it was sent out by my old high school, and it described several cases of clinically confirmed whooping cough in my school among students and staff. And this is just a horrible example of what happens when groups in close proximity choose not to get vaccinated. Okay, so what to think with all this knowledge coming at you? I'd like to tell you about the difference between causation and correlation. So just because two things happen around the same time, like the development of autism and when parents choose to get their children vaccinated, which is early childhood, doesn't mean that the two variables are in any way connected. And this concept can be very difficult for people to grasp, and it allows false information to quickly spread and to be falsely believed, which can be very dangerous. As a fellow TED speaker once said, his name is Michael Spector, "We will believe what makes us feel real and not a bunch of documents from a government official giving us data." And this is so true, as we increasingly distrust authority in America. It's also very convenient for the media to downplay issues involving vaccines by replacing complex reasons for why it's important to get vaccinated with pithy statements like vaccines may kill, or there may be a link, there might be. And this is just spread anti-vaccine sentiment galore, as well as anti-vaccine activists like Jenny McCarthy, who are all too ever prominent in the media, just putting others' lives at risk. Very dangerous, and it has had disastrous results. So, in conclusion, vaccines seem to have lost credibility in the eyes of the American people due to false studies, negative media portrayal, and logical fallacies. But I'd like to end with this. When it comes to saving lives, the use of science should never be halted.